The rain was coming down hard that Monday morning when Jasmine walked through the front doors of Riverside High for the first time. She pulled her jacket tighter around herself, feeling the eyes of other students following her as she made her way down the hallway. Being the new girl was never easy, but being the new girl in junior year felt even worse. Everyone already had their friend groups, their lunch tables, their whole lives figured out. Jasmine wasn't trying to stand out. She never did. Her hair was pulled back in simple braids, nothing fancy. Her clothes came from the thrift store downtown, the one her mom had found during their first week in town. The jeans fit well enough and the sweater was warm. That's all that mattered to her. She had more important things to think about than impressing people she didn't even know yet. The guidance counselor handed her a schedule and a map of the school, gave her a quick smile and sent her on her way. First period was English, room 204. Jasmine climbed the stairs, found the room, and slipped into an empty seat near the back. A few students glanced her way, but most were too busy on their phones or chatting with friends to pay much attention. That was fine with her. By lunchtime, Jasmine had started to relax a little. The classes seemed okay, the teachers were decent enough, and nobody had bothered her. She grabbed a tray from the cafeteria, found a quiet corner table by the windows, and pulled out a book she'd been reading. If she could just get through these next 2 years without drama, she'd be happy. That's when she heard the laughter. It started low, just a few giggles from a table across the room. Jasmine didn't look up at first. She'd learned a long time ago that sometimes the best way to avoid trouble was to mind your own business. But the laughter got louder, and then she heard a voice cut through the noise of the cafeteria. "Oh my God, are those boots from 5 years ago?" Jasmine's fingers tightened on her book, but she kept her eyes on the page. "Don't react. Don't give them anything. And that sweater. Girl, who shops at a yard sale?" More laughter. Jasmine could feel her face getting hot, but she forced herself to stay calm. She'd dealt with mean girls before back at her old school. They always got bored eventually if you didn't give them a reaction. She was wrong about these ones. The next day, Jasmine was getting books from her locker when someone bumped into her hard enough to make her drop everything. Her binders hit the floor, papers scattering everywhere. She looked up to see 3 girls standing there. The one in front had perfect blonde hair and wore clothes that probably cost more than Jasmine's entire wardrobe. Her name was Madison. Jasmine had heard people talking about her in the hallways. Apparently, she'd been running things at Riverside High since freshman year. "Oh, sorry," Madison said, but she wasn't sorry at all. Her friends stood behind her, both of them trying not to laugh. "Didn't see you there." Jasmine bent down to pick up her papers without saying anything. Madison and her friends walked away, their laughter echoing down the hallway. By the end of the first week, Jasmine had been bumped into 4 more times, always by one of Madison's group. She'd heard them making comments about her hair, her clothes, the way she talked. They weren't even trying to be subtle about it anymore. Other students noticed, but nobody said anything. That's how it always worked. Everyone was too worried about becoming the next target. The worst part was going home and having to pretend everything was fine. Jasmine's mom had enough to worry about with her new job and trying to make ends meet in a more expensive town. She worked long hours at the hospital, picking up extra shifts whenever she could. The last thing she needed was to hear that her daughter was having problems at school, so Jasmine smiled when her mom asked about her day. She said classes were good, the other kids were nice, everything was great. Her mom would give her a tired smile back and tell her she was proud of her for adjusting so well. Jasmine hated lying, but sometimes lies were easier than the truth. What nobody at Riverside High knew about Jasmine was that she hadn't always been the quiet, keep-to-herself type. Back in her old neighborhood, things were different. Her uncle owned a gym there, the kind of place where serious fighters trained. Jasmine had practically grown up in that gym. While other kids were at dance class or soccer practice, she was learning how to throw proper punches and execute takedowns. Her uncle had been a professional fighter years ago, before an injury ended his career. He'd started teaching as a way to stay connected to the sport he loved. When Jasmine was 7 years old and got pushed around by some older kids at the playground, her uncle had sat her down and asked her a question she'd never forgotten. "Do you want to be scared or do you want to be ready?" She'd chosen ready. For the next 9 years, Jasmine had trained almost every day. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, wrestling. She'd competed in tournaments, won medals, earned her black belt. The quiet girl who now sat alone in the cafeteria could take down opponents twice her size. She knew how to break grips, escape holds, defend herself against pretty much anything. But her uncle had taught her something else too, something even more important than any technique. He'd taught her restraint. Real strength, he always said, wasn't about hurting people. It was about having the power to hurt them and choosing not to. Walking away wasn't weakness. Starting fights you didn't need to start was. So Jasmine walked away. Every single time, when Madison shoved her, when the comments got nasty, when they started posting things about her online, calling her names, making fun of everything about her, she walked away because that's what her training had taught her to do. But walking away was getting harder. By the third week, Jasmine had stopped eating lunch in the cafeteria. She found an empty classroom instead, somewhere she could have 20 minutes of peace. She'd stopped using her locker between classes, carrying all her books with her to avoid the hallway encounters. She'd even changed her route to her last class because Madison's group always seemed to be waiting there. Her mom finally noticed something was wrong when she came home one afternoon and found Jasmine sitting on her bed, staring at the wall. The look on her daughter's face made her sit down immediately. "Baby, what's going on?" Jasmine wanted to tell her everything. About Madison and her friends. About feeling like she couldn't breathe at school. About using every ounce of her training just to keep herself from reacting. But she looked at her mom's tired eyes and the worry lines that seemed deeper than they used to be, and the words wouldn't come. "Just a long day," she said quietly. "I'm okay." Her mom didn't look convinced, but she had to leave for her evening shift at the hospital. She kissed Jasmine's forehead and made her promise to call if she needed anything. After she left, Jasmine lay back on her bed and stared at the ceiling. She thought about her uncle's gym, about the heavy bag she used to work out her frustrations on. She thought about how much simpler things had been when problems could be solved on the mat, with rules and referees and respect. She had no idea that in just a few days, everything was about to change. That her choice to walk away was about to run out of road. And that sometimes the only way to stop people from hurting you was to show them exactly who they'd been messing with all along. The bathroom was empty when Jasmine walked in after sixth period. She just needed a minute to herself, a quiet moment before heading to her last class of the day. She set her backpack on the counter and splashed some cold water on her face. In the mirror, she barely recognized herself anymore. The confident girl who used to spar with grown men at the gym seemed like a different person entirely. The door swung open behind her. Jasmine glanced up and her stomach dropped. Madison walked in first, followed by her two friends. They weren't there by accident. The way they spread out, blocking the door, made that clear. "Well, look who it is," Madison said, crossing her arms. She had that smile on her face, the one that made Jasmine's skin crawl. "We've been wanting to have a little chat with you." Jasmine turned around slowly, keeping her back to the sinks. Her heart was pounding, but her breathing stayed steady. Years of training kicked in automatically. Assess the situation. Find the exits. Stay calm. "I don't want any trouble," Jasmine said quietly. "Then you should have thought about that before you came to our school," one of Madison's friends said. She had her phone out, camera pointed right at Jasmine. "Acting like you're too good to talk to anyone. Walking around with your little books like you're so smart." Madison took a step closer. "Here's how this is going to work. We're going to take some videos of you. You're going to say whatever we tell you to say. And if you don't, these videos go online anyway, and trust me, they won't be pretty." Jasmine's hands gripped the edge of the sink behind her. Every instinct in her body was screaming at her to move, to defend herself. She could disarm the phone in 2 seconds. She could have all three of them on the ground before they knew what hit them. But her uncle's voice echoed in her head. "Walk away when you can. Fight only when you must. Please," Jasmine said, hating how small her voice sounded. "Just let me leave." Madison laughed and shoved her hard. Jasmine's back hit the sink, pain shooting through her spine. She could have stopped the shove, could have redirected it. Instead, she let it happen. "Did you get that?" Madison asked, looking back at her friend with the phone. "Get a good angle. I want everyone to see this." They stood there for another few minutes, making her listen to every cruel thing they could think of to say. Jasmine kept her eyes down, her jaw clenched so tight it ached. Finally, they got bored and left, their laughter echoing off the bathroom tiles even after the door closed behind them. Jasmine waited until she was sure they were gone before she let herself shake. She gripped the sink, taking deep breaths, fighting back tears that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with frustration. She'd let them push her around. Again. That night, she barely touched her dinner. Her mom was working late again. So Jasmine ate alone, pushing food around her plate while her mind replayed the bathroom scene over and over. Each time she imagined a different ending, one where she didn't just stand there and take it. The next day was worse. Jasmine was walking through the cafeteria, trying to get to her usual quiet corner when someone stuck their foot out. She saw it too late. Her tray went flying, food splattering across the floor. The entire cafeteria went silent. Hundreds of eyes turned to watch. She looked up from where she'd caught herself on her hands and knees. Madison stood there with that same smile, surrounded by her friends. They weren't even pretending it was an accident. "Oops," Madison said. "My bad." The cafeteria erupted in laughter. Not everyone, but enough. Enough to make Jasmine's face burn with humiliation as she knelt there and spilled spaghetti and chocolate milk. Her favorite cardigan, the soft blue one her grandmother had given her before she passed away, was covered in red sauce. Jasmine stood up slowly. Her hands were shaking, but not from embarrassment. Not from fear. From the sheer effort of holding herself back. She could feel it building inside her. All those weeks of walking away, of staying silent, of letting them win. It was like a pressure valve about to blow. She looked at Madison. Really looked at her. And for just a second, Madison's smile faltered. Something in Jasmine's eyes must have warned her that she was pushing too far. But the moment passed. Jasmine bent down, picked up her tray, and walked away. Behind her, she heard Madison say something that made everyone laugh again. She didn't catch the words. She was too focused on keeping her breathing steady, on not turning around, on making it out of that cafeteria without doing something she couldn't take back. She spent the rest of lunch in a bathroom stall, trying to clean the sauce off her grandmother's cardigan. It wouldn't come out. The stain had set in, ruining the soft fabric. Jasmine sat there on the closed toilet seat, holding the cardigan in her hands, and finally let herself cry. When she got home that afternoon, her mom took one look at her and knew something was wrong. The cardigan gave it away. Her mom knew how much that sweater meant to Jasmine. Baby, what happened? This time Jasmine couldn't hold it in anymore. Everything came spilling out. The comments, the shoving, the bathroom confrontation, the cafeteria incident. All of it. Her mom listened, her expression growing darker with every word. "We're calling the school," her mom said immediately, reaching for her phone. "This is bullying. They have policies for this." "Mom, no." Jasmine grabbed her mother's hand. "Please, that'll just make it worse. You know it will." "So what, you just let them keep treating you like this?" "I can handle it," Jasmine said. But even as the words came out, she wasn't sure she believed them anymore. Her mom sat down next to her on the couch, pulling Jasmine close. "You know you could stop them if you wanted to. Your uncle trained you for situations like this. He also trained me to walk away. Walking away is smart when it works," her mom said carefully. "But baby, sometimes people don't stop until you make them stop. I'm not saying go looking for a fight. But if they corner you again, if they put their hands on you again, you have every right to defend yourself." Jasmine nodded, but she still felt torn. Everything in her training told her that fighting should be the last resort. That real strength was about control, about choosing not to use violence even when you could. But where was the line? How much was she supposed to take before defending herself stopped being aggression and started being survival? That weekend, Jasmine tried to clear her head. She went for long runs, practiced her forms in the backyard when her mom was at work. She even called her uncle, though she didn't tell him exactly what was going on. Just hearing his voice helped. He reminded her of something he used to say all the time. "A black belt doesn't make you a fighter. It makes you someone who knows when to fight and when not to. Trust your training, but more importantly, trust yourself." Monday morning came too fast. Jasmine got dressed, stared at herself in the mirror, and made a decision. She was done running, done hiding, done changing her whole life to avoid Madison and her friends. She wasn't going to start any fights, but she wasn't going to keep taking their abuse either. If they came at her again, she'd give them one warning. Just one. After that, whatever happened would be on them. She grabbed her backpack and headed for the door. Her mom was already at work, but she'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "Be strong, be smart. I love you." Jasmine folded the note and put it in her pocket. She was going to need all the strength she could get, because somehow she knew that today was going to be different. She could feel it in her bones. The thing about pressure valves was that they could only hold so much before something had to give, and Jasmine was done holding back. The school day dragged on forever. Jasmine went through her classes like she was on autopilot, barely hearing what the teachers were saying. She kept expecting something to happen, kept waiting for Madison and her friends to show up. But they didn't. Not in the hallway between classes. Not at lunch. Not anywhere. Maybe they'd finally gotten bored. Maybe they'd moved on to someone else. Jasmine wanted to believe that, but something in her gut told her it wasn't over. People like Madison didn't just stop. They pushed until something broke. By the time the final bell rang, Jasmine felt exhausted from the tension of waiting. She grabbed her stuff and headed out, taking the long route toward the exit. The art building was on the way, and hardly anyone used it after school. It would be quiet, peaceful. She could cut through and avoid the main hallways where everyone hung out. The art building always smelled like paint and clay. Jasmine's footsteps echoed on the linoleum floor as she walked past empty classrooms. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows, making dust particles dance in the air. For the first time all day, she felt like she could breathe. Then she heard the door close behind her. Jasmine turned around. Madison stood there, blocking the exit she'd just come through. Her two friends appeared from a classroom on either side, cutting off that path too. This wasn't random. They'd been waiting for her. Going somewhere? Madison asked. She was holding something in her hand. It took Jasmine a second to realize what it was. Scissors. The big kind from the art room. Jasmine's pulse jumped, but her voice stayed steady. Get out of my way. See, that's your problem, Madison said, walking closer. Her friends had their phones out, already recording. You think you can just tell us what to do? You think you're better than everyone else with your quiet little act? I never said that. I never did anything to you. You exist, Madison said flatly. That's enough. And now you're going to learn what happens to girls who don't fit in here. She held up the scissors and Jasmine understood. They were going to cut her hair. On video, for everyone to see, the ultimate humiliation, recorded and posted for the whole school to mock. This is going to be so good, one of Madison's friends said, adjusting her phone angle. Everyone's going to see this. They started closing in. Madison was in front, scissors in hand. Her friends were on either side, phones up, blocking any escape route. The wall was behind Jasmine. They had her cornered, or at least they thought they did. Jasmine felt something shift inside her. All those weeks of holding back, of walking away, of letting them push her around. It was like a switch flipped. Her uncle's voice came back to her, but different words this time. Not about walking away. About knowing when the time for walking was over. Last chance, Jasmine said quietly. Back off now, Madison laughed. Or what, you gonna cry? You gonna run to the principal? She reached out, grabbing for Jasmine's hair with one hand, scissors raised in the other. Jasmine moved. 9 years of training took over. Her body knew what to do before her mind even finished processing it. She caught Madison's wrist, the one holding the scissors, and redirected it with a smooth circular motion. Madison stumbled forward, thrown off balance by her own momentum. The scissors clattered to the floor. Madison tried to pull away, but Jasmine held on, controlling her arm with a basic joint lock. Not enough to hurt, just enough to keep her from moving. It was one of the first techniques her uncle had taught her. What are you doing? Madison's voice had changed. The confidence was gone. Let go of me. One of her friends rushed forward, trying to grab Jasmine from behind. Another mistake. Jasmine had spent years practicing against multiple opponents. She released Madison just long enough to sidestep, catching the other girl's wrist and using her own forward momentum against her. The girl found herself bent over, arm twisted behind her back in a gentle but firm hold. Stop, you're hurting her, the third friend yelled, still holding her phone but backing away now. I'm not hurting anyone, Jasmine said calmly. And she wasn't. These weren't the painful submissions she'd learned for competition. These were control holds, the kind you used when you needed to restrain someone without injuring them. But I could. That's what you need to understand. She released the second girl, who scrambled backward, clutching her arm even though nothing was wrong with it. Madison was on the floor now, breathing hard, staring up at Jasmine like she was seeing her for the first time. How did you? Madison started. I've been training since I was 7 years old, Jasmine said. Her voice was steady, calm. She wasn't angry anymore. She wasn't scared. She just was. Brazilian jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, I have a black belt. I've competed against grown adults. I could have stopped you any time these past few weeks. Every single time you pushed me. Every time you shoved me, every time you put your hands on me. I let it happen because I was trying to avoid exactly this. Madison was still on the floor, and Jasmine could see the fear in her eyes now. Real fear. The same fear Jasmine had been living with for weeks. You came at me with scissors, Jasmine continued. You cornered me. 3 against 1. You were going to assault me and film it. And you know what? I still didn't hurt you. I could have easily, but I didn't. We're going to the principal, Madison said, but her voice was shaking. You attacked us. We have it on video. Good, Jasmine said. She bent down and picked up one of the phones that had been dropped. The screen showed it was still recording. Then they'll see everything. They'll see you blocking the exits. They'll see the scissors. They'll see you grabbing me first. Self-defense isn't a crime. But what you tried to do, that is? She picked up the other phones too, all still recording, and placed them carefully on one of the art room desks where the cameras could capture the whole scene. Madison and her friends were all on their feet now, backed up against the wall. Here's what's going to happen, Jasmine said. You're going to leave. You're going to take your phones. And you're going to think very carefully about what you do with those videos. Because if you edit them, if you try to make it look like something it wasn't, I'll make sure everyone sees the full footage. The timestamps don't lie. You can't tell us what to do, Madison said, but there was no strength behind the words. I'm not telling you what to do, Jasmine replied. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. I already sent screenshots of every comment you've made about me online to my mom. She's been documenting everything. The shoving in the hallways, the bathroom incident, the cafeteria. We have witnesses. We have dates. We have evidence. It was partly a bluff. Her mom had the cardigan and Jasmine had told her everything, but they hadn't actually been building a formal case. But Madison didn't know that. And the fear in her eyes said she believed it. Why didn't you just fight back before? One of the friends asked quietly. Why wait until now? Jasmine thought about that for a moment. Because I hoped you'd stop on your own. Because fighting should always be the last choice, not the first one. Because being able to hurt someone and choosing not to, that's real strength. But letting people hurt you over and over when you can stop them, that's not strength. That's just letting yourself be a victim. She walked toward the door and the 3 girls pressed themselves against the wall to let her pass. At the doorway, Jasmine stopped and looked back. Leave me alone. Leave everyone alone. Because next time, you might pick on someone who doesn't have as much control as I do. Someone who will hurt you. And you'll deserve it. Then she walked out, leaving them in the art room with their phones and their fear, and the sudden understanding that they'd been bullying the wrong person all along. Jasmine's hands didn't start shaking until she was outside. Halfway to the parking lot, then it hit her all at once. What had just happened? What could have happened? She sat down on a bench and took deep breaths, her heart pounding. She'd done it. She'd stood up for herself. And somehow she'd managed to do it without becoming the bully herself. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mom. How was your day? Jasmine stared at the message for a long moment. Then she typed back, I think it's about to get interesting. Jasmine didn't sleep much that night. She kept replaying the scene in the art building over and over in her head. Had she done the right thing? Could she have handled it differently? Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Madison's face, that mixture of shock and fear. Her mom had come home late from her shift and found Jasmine sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. When Jasmine told her what happened, she expected her mom to be upset. Instead, her mom pulled her into a tight hug. I'm proud of you, she said quietly. You protected yourself without losing who you are. That's not easy to do. What if they twist it? Jasmine asked. What if they make me look like the bad guy? Then we deal with it, her mom said firmly. But baby, you did nothing wrong. They came at you with scissors. 3 against 1. Anyone who sees that full video will know exactly what happened. Tuesday morning arrived too soon. Jasmine walked through the school doors expecting whispers, expecting stares. And she got them, but not in the way she'd imagined. People looked at her differently now. Some with curiosity, some with something that almost looked like respect. By second period, Jasmine understood why. The video had spread, but not the edited version Madison probably wanted. Someone had gotten hold of the full footage and it was everywhere. Students were watching it in the hallways, passing phones back and forth, rewatching the moment Jasmine had calmly defended herself against 3 attackers. Dude, did you see how fast she moved? She heard someone say at the locker next to hers. I heard she's been training since she was like 7. Madison really picked the wrong person to mess with. Jasmine kept her head down and headed to class. She didn't want to be talked about. She didn't want to be some viral video. She just wanted it all to be over. Third period had just started when she got called to the principal's office. Her stomach dropped. This was it. Whatever was coming next, it was happening now. Principal Chen was a stern-looking woman in her 50s who'd been running Riverside High for almost a decade. She sat behind her desk, hands folded, expression unreadable. Across from her sat Madison and her 2 friends, along with 3 sets of angry-looking parents. Sit down. Jasmine, Principal Chen said, gesturing to an empty chair. Jasmine sat, her backpack clutched in her lap like a shield. She glanced at Madison, who wouldn't meet her eyes. These students have filed a complaint against you, Principal Chen began. They claim you physically attacked them yesterday after school. Before Jasmine could respond, one of the mothers spoke up. My daughter has bruises on her arm. This girl assaulted her. We want her expelled. Jasmine's mouth went dry. This was exactly what she'd been afraid of. They were going to flip the whole thing around, make her the villain. Mrs. Peterson, Principal Chen said calmly. I've reviewed the video footage, multiple copies of it actually, since it seems to be circulating quite widely this morning. Exactly, the mother said. It clearly shows your daughter and 2 others cornering another student in a deserted area of the school. It shows one of them holding scissors in a threatening manner. It shows them blocking exits and recording what appears to be a planned confrontation. The room went quiet. Principal Chen turned to her computer and clicked something. I've watched this video several times now. Would you like to see it again? She turned the monitor so everyone could see. There it was, the whole thing. Madison blocking the door. The scissors. The phone's recording. Jasmine giving a clear warning. And then, when they came at her, her calm, controlled response. Your daughters initiated a confrontation. Principal Chen continued. They brought a weapon, scissors from the art room. They filmed it, presumably for online distribution. And when Miss Carter defended herself, she did so with remarkable restraint. I've consulted with our security officer, who has training in defensive tactics. He confirmed that everything Miss Carter did was basic defensive technique designed to control without injuring. But my daughter's arm, Mrs. Peterson started. Has no bruises? Principal Chen interrupted. I had our school nurse examine all 3 girls this morning. There are no injuries, no bruising, no marks of any kind. Madison's face flushed red. She'd been caught in a lie. Principal Chen opened a folder on her desk. What's more troubling is what I found when I started investigating. This isn't the first incident. Miss Carter, would you like to tell me why you didn't report being bullied for the past 3 weeks? Jasmine's voice came out quieter than she intended. I didn't think anyone would believe me. I have screenshots here that Miss Carter's mother sent me this morning. Comments on social media, witness statements from other students who saw hallway incidents, and security footage from the cafeteria showing one of these students deliberately tripping Miss Carter, destroying her lunch and damaging her clothing. The parents shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But beyond that, Principal Chen continued, and her voice got harder. I've discovered something else. 6 other students have come forward this morning. 6. All of them with similar stories about being harassed by this same group. Most never reported it because they were afraid. But after seeing that video, after seeing someone finally stand up, they found the courage to speak up. Madison was staring at her lap now, her face pale. Her friends looked like they wanted to disappear into their chairs. So here's what's going to happen, Principal Chen said. Madison, Courtney, and Brittany, you are suspended for 5 days. You'll also be required to attend counseling sessions about bullying and its consequences. Your parents will need to meet with me and the school counselor before you're allowed to return. This is ridiculous. Madison's father exploded. My daughter is the victim here. Your daughter brought scissors to threaten another student, Principal Chen said coldly. That's assault with a weapon. I could involve the police if you'd like. I'm sure they'd be interested in reviewing that footage. The room went silent again. As for Miss Carter, Principal Chen turned to Jasmine, and her expression softened slightly. You're not in trouble. You defended yourself appropriately when cornered by multiple attackers. However, I wish you had come to us sooner. We can't help if we don't know there's a problem. I know, Jasmine said quietly. I just wanted to handle it myself. I understand that impulse. But you're not alone here. We have resources. We have people who want to help. Principal Chen closed the folder. I'm going to recommend that we start a peer mediation program, and perhaps some self-defense workshops taught properly in a supervised setting. What do you think about that? Jasmine looked up, surprised. You want me to teach? I want someone who understands both the physical and ethical aspects of self-defense. Someone who knows that real strength is about protection, not aggression. Someone who just demonstrated exactly that. A small smile tugged at Jasmine's lips. I'd like that. The meeting wrapped up quickly after that. Madison and her friends were escorted out by their parents, who were already arguing about lawyers and unfair treatment. Jasmine gathered her things to leave, but Principal Chen stopped her. Miss Carter, one more thing. That cardigan you were wearing in the cafeteria video, the blue one that got ruined, was that special to you? Jasmine's throat tightened. It was my grandmother's. She died last year. Principal Chen nodded. The school has a discretionary fund for situations like this. It won't replace your grandmother's sweater, but perhaps you could find something meaningful with it. Consider it an apology for what you went through here. Jasmine didn't trust herself to speak, so she just nodded. Walking back through the hallways felt different. Students still looked at her, but now some of them smiled. A girl she'd never spoken to before stopped her. Hey, I just wanted to say thanks. Madison and her friends have been making my life miserable since freshman year. I never had the guts to stand up to them. You do now, Jasmine said. That's what matters. By lunchtime, 5 more students had approached her, all with similar stories, all grateful that someone had finally said enough. Jasmine realized something important. She hadn't just defended herself yesterday. She'd given other people permission to stop being victims too. At her locker after school, she found a note slipped through the vent. She unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was shaky, like whoever wrote it had been crying. I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve any of it. I know that now. I hope someday you can forgive me. And Jasmine stared at the note for a long time. She thought about crumpling it up, throwing it away. Madison had made her life hell for weeks, had humiliated her, threatened her, tried to hurt her. But she also thought about the look on Madison's face in that office. The shame, the realization that her actions had consequences. Maybe this was real. Maybe Madison had actually learned something. Jasmine folded the note and put it in her pocket. She wasn't ready to forgive, not yet. Maybe not ever. But she could acknowledge the apology. She could leave the door open for Madison to become a better person. That felt like strength too, a different kind than what she'd shown in the art building, but just as important. Her phone buzzed. Her mom. How did it go? Jasmine smiled as she typed back. Better than I expected. I think things are going to be okay. And for the first time since she'd walked through Riverside High's doors 4 weeks ago, she actually believed it. 2 weeks passed before Jasmine saw Madison again. The suspension had ended, and Madison returned to school looking different somehow. Smaller. She kept her head down in the hallways, didn't sit at her usual table in the cafeteria. Her friends had scattered, each of them eating lunch in different corners of the school, avoiding each other. Jasmine tried not to pay attention, but it was hard not to notice. The girl who'd ruled Riverside High for 2 years had become invisible overnight. Part of Jasmine felt satisfied by that, but another part, a part she didn't quite understand yet, felt something else. Not quite sympathy, but maybe recognition. She knew what it felt like to walk through school feeling alone. The self-defense workshop idea had taken off faster than anyone expected. Principal Chen announced it during morning announcements, and within 2 days 40 students had signed up. Most of them were girls, but not all. Jasmine recognized some of the faces from the hallways. Kids who'd always kept their heads down, who'd spent their high school years trying not to be noticed. The first session was on a Wednesday after school in the gymnasium. Jasmine had spent the whole week preparing, calling her uncle for advice on what to teach. He'd sent her a list of basic techniques, but more importantly, he'd reminded her of the philosophy behind them. It's not about making them fighters, he'd said over the phone. It's about giving them confidence. When you know you can protect yourself, you walk different. You talk different. And bullies can sense that. They look for easy targets. Stop being an easy target and most of them move on. Jasmine stood in front of the group now, her stomach fluttering with nerves. She'd competed in tournaments in front of hundreds of people, but this felt different. More important somehow. Hi everyone, she started, her voice echoing slightly in the big space. I'm Jasmine, and I guess you all know why we're here. Before we start, I want to make something clear. This isn't about learning how to fight. It's about learning how to not fight, if that makes sense. A few confused faces looked back at her. What I mean is, the goal is never to hurt someone. The goal is to protect yourself and get away safely. Everything I'm going to show you is about control and defense. Because the strongest person isn't the one who can do the most damage. It's the one who can stop damage from happening in the first place. She spent the next hour teaching them basic awareness techniques. How to stand, how to carry yourself with confidence, how to recognize when a situation was getting dangerous. No physical moves yet, just the mental preparation. Bullies are predators, Jasmine explained, and predators look for certain things. They look for people who seem distracted, vulnerable, alone. If you're aware of your surroundings, if you carry yourself like you're not an easy target, most bullies will move on to someone else. A girl in the front row raised her hand. Jasmine recognized her from the hallway, one of the students who'd come forward after the video spread. But isn't that just passing the problem to someone else? The girl asked. If they move on, they're just going to bully a different person. It was a good question, one Jasmine had thought about a lot lately. You're right, she said. And that's why this can't just be about individual protection. We need to change the culture. When one person stands up, it gives other people courage. When enough people stand up, bullies run out of targets. They either change or they become outcasts themselves. She saw a few heads nodding. Over the next few weeks, the workshops continued. Jasmine taught them basic escape techniques, how to break grips, how to get away if someone grabbed them. She taught them about using their voice as a weapon, how a loud no or back off could sometimes stop a situation before it escalated. But more than the physical techniques, she taught them about boundaries and self-worth, about knowing that they had the right to feel safe, that they didn't deserve to be treated badly no matter what anyone said. The change in the school was subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. Students walked taller. They spoke up more in class. The hallways felt different, less tense. 3 more bullying situations were reported to Principal Chen, but this time, the victims came forward immediately instead of suffering in silence. One afternoon, about a month after everything had happened, Jasmine was leaving the workshop when she saw Madison waiting outside the gym. They'd successfully avoided each other for weeks, passing in hallways without making eye contact. But now there was nowhere to go. Hey, Madison said quietly. She looked nervous, picking at the strap of her backpack. Hey, Jasmine replied carefully. I wanted to talk to you. If that's okay. If not, I understand. Jasmine thought about walking away. She had every right to. But something made her stay. Okay. Madison took a deep breath. I've been going to therapy, part of the requirement for coming back to school. And I've been talking a lot about why I did what I did. To you, to other people. Jasmine waited, not making it easy for her. I was jealous, Madison continued. Which sounds so stupid now, but it's true. You came in and you were so confident in yourself. You didn't need anyone's approval. You didn't care about fitting in or being popular. And I hated that because I've spent 3 years being terrified that if I'm not on top, I'm nothing. So you tried to tear me down. Yeah. Madison's eyes were wet now. And I'm so sorry. I know I said it in the note, but I wanted to say it to your face. What I did was cruel and wrong, and you didn't deserve any of it. Nobody did. Jasmine crossed her arms, studying Madison's face. The apology seemed genuine, but words were easy. What about everyone else? All the other people you and your friends hurt? I've been trying to apologize to them too. Some of them won't talk to me, and I don't blame them. But I'm trying. I'm actually trying to be a better person now, not just act like one. There was a long silence. Students passed by them, some glancing over curiously, but no one interrupted. I'm not ready to be your friend, Jasmine said finally. I don't know if I ever will be. I know, but I believe that people can change. And if you're really trying, if you're really working on yourself, that's good. Just don't expect me to forget what happened. I won't, Madison said. And thank you for not completely destroying me when you could have. I watched that video so many times. I saw how much control you had. You could have really hurt me. That's not who I am, Jasmine said. Violence should always be the last option, not the first. My uncle taught me that. Your uncle sounds wise. He is. Madison shifted her weight like she wanted to say more but didn't know how. Finally, she just nodded. I'll let you go. But Jasmine, what you're doing with those workshops, it's really cool. You're helping a lot of people. After Madison left, Jasmine stood there for a moment processing the conversation. It didn't erase what had happened. It didn't make them friends. But it felt like closure, like the final chapter of a bad story. Her phone rang. Her uncle. "How's my favorite black belt doing?" he asked when she answered. "Better," Jasmine said, smiling. "Actually, I'm doing really good." "Yeah? Tell me about it." As she walked to her mom's car, she told him everything. About the workshops, about the students she was helping, about how the school felt different now, about Madison's apology and how she'd handled it. "Sounds like you learned the most important lesson," her uncle said when she finished. "What's that?" "That real strength isn't about how hard you can hit. It's about knowing when to hit and when not to. It's about having power and choosing how to use it. You could have hurt that girl badly, but you didn't. You could have held a grudge forever, but you're leaving room for her to grow. That's mastery, kiddo. That's what I've been trying to teach you all along." Jasmine felt tears prickling her eyes, the good kind. "Thanks, Uncle Ray. Anytime. And hey, next time you're in town, come by the gym. I want to hear more about these workshops. Maybe we can put something together, expand the program." That night at dinner, Jasmine's mom noticed the change in her. "You look happy," she said, smiling. "Really happy." "I am," Jasmine said. "I feel like I finally found my place here, you know? Not by trying to fit in, but by being myself and helping other people be themselves too. I'm proud of you, baby. You took something terrible and turned it into something good." Jasmine thought about that. The past 2 months had been hard, probably the hardest of her life. But she'd come out the other side stronger, not just physically, but in ways that mattered more. She'd learned that you could be strong without being cruel, that you could defend yourself without becoming the aggressor. That forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, but it did mean letting go of the anger that could eat you alive. The next day at school, Jasmine walked through the front doors with her head high. No fear, no anxiety, just quiet confidence. Students said hi to her in the hallways. Teachers smiled. She'd become part of the school community in a way she'd never expected. At lunch, she sat with a group of girls from the workshop. They were laughing about something, and Jasmine realized with a start that she was laughing too. Real laughter, the kind that came from genuine happiness. This was what winning looked like. Not standing over a defeated enemy, but standing beside people you'd helped become stronger. Not revenge, but healing. Not violence, but peace earned through the choice not to use violence when you easily could have. Jasmine had walked into Riverside High 2 months ago as a scared new girl trying to be invisible. She was leaving that version of herself behind. In her place was someone who knew her own strength, who understood the responsibility that came with it, and who chose every single day to use that strength to protect rather than to harm. That was the real victory. And it felt better than any tournament trophy ever had.